Our family were born in Bethnal Green in the East End of London. My father's family had lived there for as far back as we know, although some of his forebears probably came over to Britain with the Flemish weavers who settled in that area, and thus began a tradition of furniture making by small business people. Many of our aunts and uncles, etc., were involved as carpenters, cabinet makers, and in our dad's case, a French polisher. Our mother was an alabaster, a fairly distinguished family who came with William the Conqueror as crossbowmen, so that the word arbalète, French for crossbow, became corrupted into alabaster. This family settled in Suffolk, where they became very wealthy and important in the wool trade. But when that business moved up to the north, many of the family migrated to London, where some of them fell into poverty. Unfortunately, including our branch of that family. Bethnal Green acquired a reputation as the poorest and most crowded part of London, although there were many posh parts and lots of green and open areas for us to explore and enjoy, which we did freely and without fear, from the large Victoria Park to the Bethnal Green Museum, now a part of Victoria and Albert, and housing the Museum of Childhood with its large toy collection. Ivy was the fifth child, with 3 older brothers and an older sister who died when she was 7, before I was born. Our parents had been through hardships at this point, and our dad, who had been out of work for a long time, finally found a job. But when he asked if he could take some time to go to the hospital to sit with his wife and their dying daughter, he was refused and could have lost the job, which with 4 other children he could not do. The good old days. As the older sister, Ivy used to cart me around with her when she was out exploring with her friends. This was probably under orders from our mum, though I never remember her grumbling about it, and spent many hours with her. We used to go to the museum and look at the many interesting exhibits before it was toys, and I remember well a large glass case with a samurai warrior, complete with weapons and a fierce glare, which used to frighten me to death because I was convinced he was glaring at me and would leap out of the case at any minute. Children love a safe scare, though, and one of the things we used to do was to creep up the stairs of a rather dark apartment block to the first floor, where there was a door with a splash of red on the outside, obviously paint, which the kids had convinced themselves was the home of a murderer, and the red was blood. We would gaze at the blood, and then someone would scream, and we would all rush down the stairs, Ivy dragging me with my little legs trying to keep up. Bethnal Green was and is the centre of a large Catholic church, and we used to envy the little girls in the frequent processions, walking under the gold canopies and wearing lovely blue satin dresses with white veils on their heads. We sometimes used to go into the Catholic church and, pretending to be Catholic, we would cross ourselves with the holy water. I think the priest was well aware of us, because sometimes he would be close by with a benign smile and sometimes a pat on the head. Our parents had large and close families, so that there were lots of visits from aunts and uncles who always distributed sweets and pennies, and many parties with lots of people crammed into the room, singing and telling stories. And then toward evening, the kids will be put to bed with several children in one bed, top and tail at both ends of the bed. Our mum and dad were great readers, so we always had books around, and my dad played the piano, so music was also a big part of our lives. Around 1937, we moved away from Bethnal Green and into Dagenham, which was a large estate built for the purpose of clearing some of the crowded areas of London. Although it was greener and probably a healthier place, Ivy missed the friends and family and the closeness of the connections she had had. When the war came, she was a teenager, and with her older brothers gone from the house and the austerity and the blackout, as well as all the young men taken off into the armed forces, she missed out on a lot of the fun she could have had at that age. However, she did manage to find some good times, and often when we were at home in the evening with an air raid taking place, she would be late home, and of course never quite realized the anxiety that our parents were feeling. Toward the end of the war, she married and left home, and for the first time I had a bed and a room to myself until I married. My only complaints about my older sister were that she always took up more than her fair share of the space in the bed, and when we were out on our adventures, she would lean across my shoulders as we walked home, so I was forced to carry some of her weight on our walk. Her excuse was that our brother George had done the same thing to her. I wish that she were leaning on my shoulders now. A short time after we married, my husband Jim and I left for Canada, and although we missed the families very much, we had a new country to explore and wonder at. However, not too long after, our brother Bill and his family came, and then when our dad died, Ivy and Jim with Jennifer and our mum came too. George was already here with Phyllis, as he had been in Canada with the RAF training as a pilot and had seen the glory of Canada first. So we were most of us united again. Both families lived in West Vancouver for a long time, and so Ivy and I spent a lot of time together. She did not drive a car, so I used to pick her up, and we would do things together. Many times we went grocery shopping at Woodward's, and when it came time to pick up our groceries at the pickup and go home, we found we were so busy talking we'd got back to her house without the groceries, and so had to go back again. In 1962-63, we were both pregnant with our youngest children, Hilary and Jimmy, who were born 2 months apart. And about 7 months pregnant, Ivy went into a toilet outside a gas station and got stuck in there. After a period of calling out and banging on the door, a voice answered her, and a young, rather embarrassed male got the door opened. He was put at ease by Ivy, always ready with a joke, saying, "If you'd been much longer, there would have been 2 of us to rescue." Apart from our stay in Quebec, 11 years with frequent visits to the West Coast, we have been close together ever since. I will miss my big sister.